Hey everyone, welcome to the Wilson Homestead. So today is a big seed starting day for me. I have pepper seeds that need started and several different kinds of annual flowers that I want to get started. And also I'm going to be taking some cuttings from one of my house plants so I can have several pots of those to put on my front porch in the spring. Let's get to it. I'm going to be starting 4 different kinds of peppers this year. I had a lot more than that last year, but I just don't need that many different varieties. I really did want to try the yellow monster pepper this year, but I forgot to order it, so I guess that one will have to wait until next year. So in its place, I'm going to grow the same thing that I did last year. They did pretty good. It is the Golden California Wonder bell pepper. And we're not really into a whole lot of spicy foods here, so all of these are going to be sweet peppers. I am also going to be starting some big red bell peppers. These did really good last year for me, and another really good variety that I tried last year was King of the North bell peppers. And if you watched my videos from last year, I grew Full-Ju jalapenos, which is a jalapeno pepper without the heat. And just as an experiment, I saved some seeds from those. Now, I don't know if these will even sprout, and they might revert back to a parent plant and be hot, but I just want to experiment with these and see what we get. Before we start planting the pepper seeds, I just wanted to give you a quick update on my Patterson candy onions and Hishiko bunching onions. Everything has come up and they're doing pretty good. I have another tray over here that is partially onions, and then the rest of it is brassicas. Now I have graffiti, cauliflower, Waltham broccoli, and Brunswick cabbage. And I'm going to have to thin these out. I'm starting out with some pre-moistened potting mix. This is Pro Mix Premium Organic Vegetable and Herb potting mix. And I'm just going to start filling up these little containers here. Now what I think I'm going to do with these peppers is multi-sow them into these pots, I think these are 3-inch or 4-inch pots. And then once they get going, I will separate them out and pot them up into their own container. But I'm just filling these up and lightly packing them in. You don't want to get the soil super packed in here, because then our little seedlings will struggle to get their roots through the soil. I'm going to start out with the Golden California Wonder bell peppers, and I am just going to make about 6 little holes. I think 6 would be a good number. I don't want to overcrowd these too much because they'll be a lot easier to tease apart when they need up-potted. So I think 6 is a good number. And they need planted about 1/4 of an inch deep. Alright. Now once you get the seeds in there, just push some soil back over top of them. Pat it down a little bit so that way there isn't any air pockets around the seeds. And this is optional, but I have found that this really helps. Have you ever grown anything in your grow room and you get like that algae growth on top of it? This is vermiculite, and I'm sprinkling a thin layer over the top of this soil. just to prevent that from happening. And if you buy a bag of vermiculite, it will last you a long time. I've been using the same bag for 2 seasons now, and I still have plenty because it doesn't take a whole lot just to thinly cover this soil. Now I'm going to take my sprayer and water this in. Now, since my potting mix is already pre-moistened, I don't need to put a whole lot of water on here. That should be good. Now I'm going to label it. And don't forget to label it, because then you'll be wondering what the heck you're growing here in about 6 weeks. And I'm just going to keep on doing the rest of these peppers. Every variety you plant exactly the same, 1/4 of an inch deep. So I'm not going to bore you with that whole process, but I'm going to do about 10, I think about 10 of these containers full of peppers. And that should give me enough for my garden and also give me enough to share with other people if they want some plants. These peppers are going to go on a seedling heat mat. Now this has completely changed the success that I have with peppers. I had a hard time germinating them for years. I struggled and struggled to get my pepper plants to do well. And once I got one of these heat mats, I mean, everything changed. I get almost 100% germination with this thing. Now I'm gonna leave these seedlings on this heat mat until most of them sprout. And then once that happens, you don't need the heating mat anymore. I think that humidity dome is going to be worthless. It just won't fit down over those pots. But anyway, I'm not going to turn these lights on right now because they're that annoying purple color. They're grow lights. And I think I'm going to raise this one up a bit because it's very close to the top of this. So I will probably raise it up to about here. And so peppers are good to go. Now we can start on some flowers and stuff. Now I am going to start some coleus seeds. These are Wizard Sunset coleus. I got these seeds from Swallowtail Garden Seeds and they're pretty old. So I thought I should go ahead and use these up. Now coleus are a little bit different. These like to be surface sown. They need light to germinate. So I'm just going to get these out of the packet here and sprinkle them on top of the soil. They're very tiny seeds. I want to make sure I get all of them out here. I don't want to waste any of them. They might have a poor germination rate since I waited so long, but look how tiny those seeds are. I'm just going to try to get them evenly distributed over this soil. Now I'm not going to cover these in or anything, but I am going to do a tiny thin layer of this vermiculite on these also. I don't want to really cover the seeds up too much. And when I water these in, that should settle those seeds right down against the soil. Okay, those should be good to go. I'm going to put my label in, and I actually think that I am going to put my coleus in that same container that the peppers are in with bottom heat, because that will probably make these sprout a lot more quickly. I did save seeds from the coleus that I grew last year. Now they will cross-pollinate, so I might have some weird mixes, but I'm going to go ahead and try it because how can you go wrong as long as you have a coleus? They're beautiful plants, and even if you get some funky hybrids, they're still beautiful. So I'm going to finish sowing those, and then we will move on to the next flower. Okay, next up I have some seeds that I saved from last year. And if you watched my channel last year, I grew gomphrena for the first time, also known as globe amaranth. I grew pink, purple, and white, and I saved some seeds from each of those. Now I will tell you, whenever you're saving seeds, I had it in my mind that the seeds were going to come out so easily, but they're hooked to the petals and they don't come out easily, and I was just like, well, I'm not going to go through this and tear all the petals off. That would be too big of a job for this many seeds. So I just left the petals on there, and I don't think it's going to be a big deal that they're on there. I'm just going to plant them like normal, and I think I'm going to multi-sow these, and I'm going to do 2 containers of each color. And they have to be buried about 1/8 of an inch deep. So I'm just going to sprinkle a bunch in this container, cover it with soil, and then I will probably put a thin layer of vermiculite on top and then wet it down so that way they can sprout. But these were so amazing in my garden last year. Once they started blooming, they just bloomed their heads off until frost. And I actually did a cut arrangement with these in it, and those flowers stay forever. And I even put an arrangement out on my front porch where I just cut the flowers and stuck them in there. They weren't in water or anything. And I will have to give you a look at what those are like after they lasted all winter on my front porch, because I never cleaned up those fall containers. But these can be dried and you can just use them forever. Like, you can dry these flowers and they'll maintain the color pretty well, and then you can put them in wreaths or arrangements or whatever you want to. So this is definitely going to be a mainstay in my garden from now on. And the seeds were pretty easy to save. Now, this is my first time saving these seeds, so we'll see what the germination rate is whenever it has all this fluff on the outside of them. Hopefully we don't have any rotting issues or anything like that after I bury these. But that's the plan, so I'm going to get to it. I'm going to start out, my favorite ones were the purple ones. So I'm going to start out with the purple ones. And I'm just going to just grab a bunch of them and stick them in there. We'll see what happens. Now, if a bunch of these germinate, in a few weeks I will start gently separating out plants and then up potting them into a bigger container, so that way they can have their own home to grow on until I can put them outside. Now I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of this pre-moistened potting soil on top of here. Not a whole bunch, because like I said, they only need to be 1/8 of an inch deep, so we don't need just a whole lot. Now, these seeds are pretty easy to see since they have all those petals on them still, so I can see if I haven't covered anything well enough. Okay, that looks really good right there. I don't see anything sticking out. Oh, right there. There's one sticking out, so I'm going to put a little more soil right there. Now I'm going to get my little layer of vermiculite, put it right on top, and spray it down. Alright, and don't forget to put your label in. I'm trying to keep these colors separate so I know what they are. But last year I just got a mixed packet of gomphrena seeds, so I didn't know what color I was growing. I just put things around willy-nilly and it was still beautiful. So even if you forget your label in this one and you just know that it's gomphrena, anywhere you put it, it's going to be pretty. And I also noticed that this plant, I actually put a few of them in my perennial bed for some extra color this year, and the deer and rabbits actually left them alone. So this is just one of those plants that's going to give you a lot of color and not give you a lot of hassle during the season. You're not going to have to worry about like insect pressure or pest pressure. So this is one of my top plants this year. I don't think I'll ever go without gomphrena ever again. Next up, I have some more saved seeds. These are Illumia Vanilla Marigold seeds. I grew these in my vegetable garden last year, and they weren't quite what I was expecting. I was expecting like a more vanilla color, but they were pretty bright yellow to me. But I still like them anyway. They were a nice addition to the garden, so I am going to sow some of these seeds. And I'm just going to do a couple of these 4-inch pots like I did the other ones. I will multi-sow them, and then in a few weeks I will pick them out and put them in their own container. But these seeds are pretty cool looking. There's a single one right there. And they don't like to be buried very deep, so I'm just going to lay some in this pot. I'm not going to be that careful with it, honestly. I have so many seeds. So I'm just going to lay them out there like that, and then put a very thin layer of potting mix on top, and then some vermiculite. Now we have Royal Carpet Alyssum, and I saved these seeds, and I'm not actually sure how many seeds are in there. It doesn't look like a whole bunch of seeds. It was hard to tell what was seeds and what was chaff, so is that the word, chaff? I hope that's the word. Anyway, that's the word I'm using. But you can see in there, there's a lot of junk in there. But I think that those dark colored specks are seeds. So I am going to surface sow these. Lord have mercy. My family is being so noisy upstairs. Do you hear that? All kinds of noise going on. I don't know if somebody came. So what I think I'm going to do is just sprinkle some in 2 containers and hope for the best. And then I'll try to separate them out if more than one germinates. Give them a little bit more room to grow in a few weeks. Okay, just sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. And these like to be sown on the surface where they get a little bit of light. So I'm not going to cover these with a thin layer of soil. I am just going to cover them with a thin layer, very thin layer of vermiculite, so that way they can get the light that they need to germinate. Next up, I'm going to be starting some of these Shirley Double Mix Colors poppies, and I'm kind of doing an experiment with these. I winter sowed some of them in a jug that are outside right now. I'm going to start some inside, and I'm going to start some directly in my flower bed. I've heard that these don't like to be transplanted. They don't like their roots messed with, so I don't know. I just have to learn things for myself. These seeds are very tiny though. I don't know if you can tell. They just look like little pieces of salt is what I could equate these to, but I'm going to sprinkle some in here, and that's probably enough. They're just so tiny. And it says on the packet, whenever you're broadcasting these outside, you can mix them up with sand, so that way you have more even broadcasting, so you don't have to thin out quite so much, kind of like carrots. But these don't like to be covered by soil, so I'm just gonna leave these on top of the soil and just lightly sprinkle some of this vermiculite on here. Next up is lupin, so Brussels hybrid mixed colors. Now I also winter sowed some of these, and I just wanted to see how they do with a head start indoors. I'm actually not planting these seeds in this video, but I am going to start soaking them. I'm going to put, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to put 6 seeds down in here. And I'm going to let these soak overnight, and then tomorrow I will put these seeds into one of these little containers. I'm just going to put all 6 seeds in here, and I'm going to push them down to about 1/8 of an inch deep, cover them with some soil, and then sprinkle the top with vermiculite like I usually do. But if you soak these overnight, you're going to get faster germination because, hold on, let me show you the seeds real quick. They're pretty big seeds, kind of like morning glories and stuff like that. They're not quite as big as morning glory seeds, but they have that really hard outer shell. Now, another thing that would hasten the germination on these is if you would take a little piece of sandpaper and rub these on it and then soak them. That would probably lessen the time a lot more, but I have been looking around for sandpaper in this basement and I cannot find it. So I'm just going to soak them overnight and then plant them. And they might take a bit longer, but I think it'll still be okay. Now you can also sow these outside after danger of frost is over. So I might do a few of them like that, just out in the flower bed, willy-nilly, just put them around there and see if they'll germinate. But it's kind of like with the poppies. I've never actually been successful growing these before, so I'm just trying every method so I can learn for myself what works, what doesn't. Next up is Valkyrie Mix Asters. And I'm just doing the same thing with these. Now these want to be about 1/8 of an inch deep. So I'm probably going to just sprinkle some in here and then sprinkle more potting mix on top of them. These seeds aren't super small, so I think I'm going to go with probably that many. Let's see how many is in there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll put 10 in here and see what happens. I've never grown asters before, so this could be interesting. They look beautiful in the picture. You know, I think I'm actually going to put a couple more in there. Watch me be going crazy trying to separate these plants whenever they all germinate. Hopefully these don't mind their roots being disturbed any, since I'm putting so many in here. Okay, sprinkle, sprinkle. We just want to have these covered lightly. And then I'm gonna push this down. Just going to sprinkle with the vermiculite. I feel like you guys are probably tired of me saying all this by now. I should have just sowed everything, but everything is different. Like, some plants are surface sowed, some need 1/8 of an inch, some need 1/4 of an inch. It just all depends on what you're growing. But 2 things remain the same. Water it in, and make sure you put that label in there or you're not going to have any idea what you're growing. Like a lot of times I have told myself, yeah, you're going to remember what you grew, but you don't. And then it becomes this Google search of trying to see what different seedlings look like. And that's no fun. Okay, the asters are ready. And we're going to move on to the next one. Next up is passion vine. I'm really excited about this one. I'm going to grow this one on my arch trellis. I think that these flowers will be beautiful there. Now this passion vine that I ordered from Seeds and Such, it actually said in the description that the fruit wasn't edible, but I think there are some kinds of these that are edible. And again, these seeds are pretty big with a thick shell on them, so they need to be soaked for 24 hours. So 6 of these in here. I really wish I could find some sandpaper because it would make it so much quicker, but what are you gonna do? But I'm just gonna do the same thing with these as I did the other ones that I'm soaking. I'll leave them in here, and then I will put them in a pot of this size. And I think I put more than 6 in there. I don't know. We'll see how many we end up with. It kind of looked like these seeds were crushed, so I don't know how well this is going to work. It says that the ones that float aren't viable, so maybe I should actually put some more in there. No. No, 4 of them sank to the bottom. I don't really need any more than 4. I have to focus and not get carried away. I always get carried away. Alright, next up is Dahlia Double Extreme. I am so excited for these. I've never even grown dahlia tubers before, but they're most easily grown from tubers. But you can also grow them easily from seed. And the ones that I start, if they grow, and I transplant them out into the garden, at the end of the season, they'll have the little tubers on the bottom, and I can dig them up and save them for next year. Now, these seeds are pretty big. See that? And I'm so excited about these that I'm going to actually plant 2 pots of them because I think that they would be something nice to share because dahlias bloom all summer long. You just keep deadheading them and they just keep putting flowers out and putting flowers out. So I think this is going to add a lot of beauty to my garden and a lot of beauty to Uncle Jeff's garden and my mom's garden. So that's why I want to plant so many, because these are going to be beautiful and I can share them with people. I'm not really sure how many I should be putting in here, but I am probably going to go overboard like I always do. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in that one. Now I can always, hopefully, I can pick these apart after they germinate and put them in their own pots. I'm just going to really go heavy on these. Like, I'm not afraid. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. That looks like a good amount. I don't know how many that is in there, but we're going to go with it. And I'm just going to lightly cover these with some soil. Oops. I moved that seed around there. Stay there, little buddy. Lightly, lightly cover these. And then I'm going to lightly cover them with vermiculite. Okay, I'm going to push those down before I put the vermiculite. And like I said, I've never grown these before, so if this isn't right, I don't know, freaking sue me, whatever. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Oh, I'm so excited about these. The picture is so beautiful. And to have that color until frost is going to be amazing. Oh, my plant shelves are starting to fill up, guys. I'm so excited about this time of year. We have all of these little empty pots, but hopefully soon I'll see some little green stuff popping up. It's just, these little pots are full of hope for the garden. And these that I have soaking, I will plant them in 24 hours. So I have a lot of work ahead of me. And plus, when this stuff starts coming up, I will have to up-pot it. Since I put a bunch of seeds in every pot, I'll have to up-pot everything, put them in their own pot, so everything can grow to the best of its ability. The only thing that I won't up-pot are these onions. Now, as these grow up, I will just keep trimming them, and they'll start actually forming tiny little bulbs. And once we get to that point, it will be time to put them outside, and then I will just break the root balls apart, separate them, and plant them out. It won't hurt them a bit, but like everything else that I'm mass sowing in these, I don't know if these are I think they're 3-inch pots, but all of these will have to be carefully picked apart and potted up. So that's going to be a lot of work. My next video is going to be really exciting for me. I don't know if anybody else gets as carried away as I do with excitement about tomatoes, but tomatoes are next. And that is one of the last things that I usually start. I'm sure that after I look through my seeds, I'm going to find some other things that I want to start. But tomato video coming up soon. I might not share everything else that I plant, but I will give you updates on it while it's here in the grow room. You can see there's some stuff hanging out here that I didn't talk about. I will talk about that. I'm not quite ready to just yet. But it's an enjoyable time here in the grow room. I'm going to take some cuttings off of this plant. I'm going to try to get the tips of the healthiest growth, and I'm going to go about 5 inches. I keep a house plant of Tradescantia just for this purpose of making cuttings, because I suck at houseplants. So if I can keep one going from one season to the next, I'm doing good. But I am terrible at growing houseplants. Like, I can grow a lot of things outside, but as soon as I bring something inside, it's like, okay, sorry plant, you're probably in hospice right now. I need 30 cuttings to have enough for my hanging baskets and to give a couple away. So I'm going to cut quite a bit off of this plant, but like I said, it's in hospice right now and probably going to die, so bless its heart. It's going to give me all the plants that I need from my front porch, but then it's probably going to be a goner. I'm hoping that my whole not being able to grow houseplants thing is because I don't get enough sun inside. But I am also known to neglect a little bit. Either I neglect them or I overwater. There's no good middle ground for me. I'm either one or the other. I'm going to take a Sharpie and make 2 holes diagonally in each one of these containers. And with my cuttings, I'm going to strip the lower leaves off of them, and we're leaving 1, 2, 3 leaf nodes out, and that's where the roots will come from. So we're going to get these down in this soil as deep as we can, and then pinch the soil back around them. I'm going to put 2 cuttings in each one of these. These are 4-inch pots or 3-inch pots. I can't remember which one. Here's another one. Remove all of the extra leaves. And I think I'm going to cut that one back a bit. Okay, and these aren't that fussy. These are one of the easier plants to take cuttings from, so you won't have to worry a whole lot about these. Just make sure that they're watered and they don't dry out, and they will do just fine. Now I'm just going to water these in a little bit. I pre-moistened the potting mix, so they don't need just a whole lot. Just enough to settle the soil down around the stems so they can root. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time here on the Wilson Homestead. Bye guys.